Who's your best two guys running for the catch? Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, the top two receivers from last week. I think you can duplicate that for the most part every single week. Now, that teams are going to start game planning for that. That's the difference. So you can say, is it sustainable? That remains to be seen. But I think that's your best chance of kind of leaning on something week in, week out is Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne. Those two guys are very good runners after the catch. And Mac needs to just, get the ball out quick to those guys. I think that's sustainable for the rest of the year.
Patsy Interference is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
One of the people's favorite guests, one of two three-time Super Bowl champions we have in this podcast. Pass Interference brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Ted Johnson is back, and I love talking to Ted for two reasons. One of which, I feel like I learned something new about you every time we talk. Today, that is something we just discussed off air, that you have a Saint Berdoodle dog, which might be making a surprise appearance here in the background. Can you tell the folks if you just told me about your Saint Berdoodle?
So, people laugh at me because I have two small dogs. I have a Cavapoo, King Cavalier Spaniel, and Poodle mix, and then a Saint Bernard dog with a poodle. Also, both small dogs. Beefy, my Saint Berdoodle, is about 33 pounds, and Lucy, my Cavapoo, is about 19 pounds. So little dogs, and I'm allergic to everything pretty much. Obviously, and so I can't have most dogs, so I got to have poodle mixes because they're hypoallergenic, and so I have little bitty poodle dogs that people seem to enjoy and make fun of because of how big I am. But they're the best, and so if you hear some barking, it's Lucy and Beefy probably getting after it.
I love this. The second reason is you help me break down and scheme defensively when the Patriots are playing a high-powered offense like Miami, which, of course, they're going to see on Sunday. And we're going to go through the same breakdown we normally do, spit it out when the Patriots have the ball, Dolphins have the ball, 3-2-1 breakdown. But just staying with Beefy for a second. First of all, I've never heard that dog name. I love that dog name, but I also have a difficult time reconciling the fact that a St. Bernard could only be 33 pounds. Like, Beefy should be beefy, no?
It's a mini poodle, mini Saint Bernard. So it's it was funny. I mean, before I bought Beefy, it was kind of like I didn't even think to kind of understand maybe how potentially big he could get. Thank God that my girlfriend, she knew that it was a mini, and so we were getting a smaller dog. But people were sending me pictures when I announced it on, I think it was on Beetle and Zoe and Beetle show that I had a Saint Berdoodle. People were sending me pictures of what potentially the size of my dog could be, and I was freaking out. To which I called my girlfriend quickly, and she says, "No, don't worry, it's a mini poodle, so don't worry about that. He's not going to get that big." But Beefy is. The name he gets the name because of all the women in my life. My nickname is Big Beefy. And so we just thought it might be fun to name our dog Little Beefy, Beef. And so that's how Beef got his name, was because it's an offshoot of my nickname with all the women in my life like to call me Big Beefy.
That sounds like a humble brag. Ted, but we're not going to go any further down that road. We're going to pivot. We're going to take the right of this fork and choose football. But good to know. And look, I'm glad you were not surprised by the size of your dog, because that would be something you would have to live with for years. St. Bernard seemed lovely, by the way, just for the big folks out there. People get sensitive about the dogs. I grew up with Goldens. My parents have pivoted to being pug people now. My sister has converted them. I will never get there, but I've come around a little bit on the small dogs. So it sounds like you landed somewhere in the middle. It's a good spot.
Pretty much, yep.
In the middle is where I find myself now looking at this game, because I got to tell you, very impressed, very happy with that Patriots result. Just as I said in the last episode, the whole energy around the team, the locker room, the media, just no one wants to watch the same thing happen every Sunday as it felt like we had been doing with this Patriots team. But then I looked at Miami and go, okay, you start as like 11.5-point underdogs. We know what's going to happen in Miami. The Patriots stink in Miami. This is a nice reprieve. That line, Ted, has come down to 9 points. And I don't know how much you care about gambling. I don't know how much you know about gambling. I don't even really care about the money aspect of it. But that tells me that smart people, and I'll throw myself in a separate group, but agree with them, that this game is going to be closer maybe than people think. That's a huge change from 11.5 down to 9. Where are you?
Yeah, look, I think that's probably appropriate, just considering how the Patriots played last week. I mean, clearly it was their best game of the season. Top to bottom, both offense, defense, all that. So that was clearly the offense. I think it was his best. It was his best showing. And so, you think that okay, they'll be able to capitalize on that. And then you see, the way in which the Dolphins lost last week to the Eagles, they got bludgeoned pretty good. And then there's a lot of injury concerns, I think, for Miami this week to key players. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, their top 2 targets, might have some issues. Right, the left tackle, left guard, those guys might not be starting this normal starters. And so those are huge, impactful players that potentially might not play in this game, against a team that just put its best performance out there. And it seems like the energy is changing, at least for this 1 week going into this game. And so I can see how the odds makers would probably bring that, that point spread down from where it was to now.
And I did TV last night, and I've been diving into some numbers this morning, did so yesterday. I can see a path, man. It's crazy, but I don't want to speak about that just yet. Let's start as we always do. Spit it out. You get 30 seconds strictly about the Patriots, not Miami, not the injuries, not just yet. Spit it out. What is this game about for the Patriots to do?
This game is about validating what they did last week. So it's really what this is. So you can go out and you can have a good game like they did last week against the Buffalo Bills, but you got to really validate what you did last week by going out there and having another solid performance. I don't think the offense. I mean, they played mistake-free. I mean, I say mistake-free. They had a fumble, but the quarterback played mistake-free football. Can he duplicate that? Can he go out there and not throw any interceptions? Can he be as efficient as he was? I mean, I don't think he can be 83% efficient like he was in last game, but can he be 70, 75% efficient? That's what I'm curious about. Can the running game show some signs, like it did last week, going into this week? It's just that's what I'm most curious about. Can you validate last week's performance and back it up with another good performance? That's what this week is all about to me, and it's also about getting back in the hunt. I mean, I've been talking about being on the 1-5 team back in 1995. When I was on that team in 1995, Bill Parcells, the head coach, he kept us engaged, Andrew, by keeping that kind of carrot out there in front of us that the playoffs were never going to be out of reach, at least until weeks, 14, 15, 16, then when it looked like maybe we were gone. But from weeks 7 until 12 of that 1995 season, when we started off 1-5, we thought maybe we can fight and get our way back in it. And I think maybe to some degree, that's probably what Bill Belichick is selling to his guys, that, hey, we're not totally out of this. The AFC isn't as good as we thought. I mean, it's kind of shocking. There's more parity in the AFC than I really thought there would be at this point. And so you sell to the guys, hey, you beat Miami. Oh my God! Now look what you are in the division. I mean, are you kidding me? They'll have they'll have the best record in the division if they go out and then beat Miami. And so you kind of build on that carrot, if you will, and that's what Bill Parcells did. We went 5-5. Played 500 ball the rest of the way after we started 1-5. Ultimately, he didn't get to the playoffs, but that was what he sold us on, and that's what I think Belichick's going to do is, hey, you go out down there and you beat Miami, oh, baby, to go to 3-5, and what would they have, a 3-1 record in the division or 4-1? 3-1 record in the division, and so that's what you hang your hat on, and that's how you keep guys engaged, Andrew. And so it's a big game, not only to validate what they did last week, to build on momentum going forward, but also to, believe it or not, stay in the playoff hunt, bud.
I'm with you there. I think it's even more short-sighted than that, though. I think you go, this is a keep the band together kind of game, or is this our last show? Like, is the bass player going to get traded to Kansas City or somewhere else, like if it's Kendrick Bourne, because you go to 2-6, like there's no argument. You're going to be sellers at the deadline. It's just a matter of how much. Belichick doesn't want to do it. At 3-5, you could talk yourself into it. We had 2 close losses to start the season against playoff teams. We're really probably closer to 4-4 than we are in 3-5. But that all starts with beating a team that is still favored to beat you by 9 points in a place where I don't care if the quarterback was Tom Brady or Cam Newton or Mac Jones or probably Drew Bledsoe. I don't know what Drew's record was. They stink in Miami. 2-8 in their last 10 games. Tom was 8-10 for his career in that stadium. So let's get into Miami right now. The Dolphins are 5-2. Their last 4 games were a 31-17 loss to Philly on Sunday Night Football. One of their touchdowns was a defensive touchdown, so only 10 points for the best offense in the league. Week before that, they pound the Panthers 42-21 at home. Before that, 31-16 win at the Giants. And then their first loss of the season, 48-20 against Buffalo, which always inspires this talk. I don't know what you think about the idea of a blueprint, that gets out there in these big offenses and everyone says, can everyone do to Miami what the Bills did to Miami? And then they win the next 2 and you're like, it's not really true. But in studying what Philly did on Sunday, I think there might be something to that. Now, you need a great defensive line like both of these teams do, and the Patriots aren't at that level. But structurally, how much zone you play, keeping things in front, cutting off crossers, capping these vertical routes.
Snap into NFL action this season with America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200. That's 200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, you hear me make these ad reads, and hopefully don't fast forward. Get your money and get into the action right now. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and lots more. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. $200 in bonus bets with just your first $5 bet.
Let's do the Patriots defense first. When the Dolphins have the ball, what do you make of that idea of a blueprint from what you've seen from Miami?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're gonna play Miami too deep, that's fine. Yeah, look, and you always play cover 2. Cover 2, the idea around cover 2 is to quote unquote take receivers out of the game. So that's what I've always taught, that you play cover 2 to quote take the wide receivers out of the game. And you look at the weapons that Miami has, clearly that's your number one concern, is to take the wide receivers out of the game. But if you're going to do that, you better do what? You better stop the run with 7 guys in the box. And like I used to always say when we played the Indianapolis Colts, if you stop Edgerrin James, you will stop Peyton Manning. And people thought that doesn't make any sense. Like, no, just bear with me. Listen, if you can stop 7 guys, if you can stop Edgerrin James with 7 guys, that allows you to play too deep and take away the wide receivers. If you can't stop Edgerrin James with 7 guys and you got to bring an 8th guy down in the box, boom, that's when Peyton would go to work on you. And it's the same thing that John Elway used to do with Terrell Davis and his guys. So you got to be able to stop the run with 7 guys. And the Patriots in that first game did not do a very good job of stopping the run. I mean, Mostert had a hell of a game. They ran all up and down the Patriots defense, and particularly on the edge. The Patriots defense have to do a much better job on the edge defending the run than they were in that first game. And that was a huge, huge problem. And they also, I tell you what, if it's really Miami got what they wanted in that first game, pretty much, because the Patriots played a lot of 3 safeties deep, and they were basically saying, you're not going to get a deep ball on us. You're not going to get the big play on us. And Miami showed poise and patience that maybe you're not used to seeing from Miami. They were totally fine with taking the little, short routes, short to intermediate routes that the Patriots were almost conceding to them. And I tell you what, I don't know if you can do that you can't do that same strategy this time. You've got to be, I think, a little bit more aggressive on those wide receivers. If Tyreek Hill doesn't play in this game, Andrew, you don't need to be sitting back waiting for the deep ball. Get up there, press those guys, because when Tua doesn't have that first option to go to, then he becomes less of a factor. And so you got to take away his first option and don't sit back waiting for the big play. Get up there, be more aggressive, jam, press cover those guys, take away that first read. And then when Tua has to hold the ball longer, the longer Tua holds the ball, the better it is for the defense. So I would just say, look, if you're going to play cover 2, fine, no problem. Have those corners up there a little bit more pressed, take away that first read, and stop the run with 7 guys. If you can't do that, it's gonna make for a longer day for the Patriots defense.
All right, cosign. That's it. We'll move on to the other side of the ball. That was very well rounded.
All right.
There's a lot there actually. I want to dive into, and I think when you talk about the numbers, stopping the run with 7 guys. I think in the modern game, it's probably more 6, right? Like they're playing 11 personnel in a way that was not the base offense you would see in your age, where it's a lot of 2 back or 2 tight end. Like things are spread out more now, which is fine. But the idea that you want to have a +1 or at least match in coverage, like if you have a 6-man box, you've got at least 5 in coverage to match theoretically 5 receivers. Even better than that, if you can win with a 5-man box, you have 6 players in coverage against 4 or 5 receivers. That means you have a +1 or +2 advantage. So I'm with you there. Like you need to do this. And when you think about Miami, Tyreek Hill comes to mind, Jalen Waddle comes to mind. Their rankings are as follows on offense: 1st by DVOA, 3rd in passing, 1st in rushing. And that rushing came down against Philly, where they only had 45 yards because, as you mentioned, down Teron Armstead, their left tackle. Old friend Isaiah Wynn, playing guard, playing well, also going to be out. And Connor Williams is banged up and out against Philly. At least Wynn and Armstead will be out here. So I think that numbers game of how many players can the Patriots survive with in the box, whether it is 6 or maybe 5, is going to be really, really key. But you mentioned Tyreek Hill. We're recording this midday Thursday. We don't know if he's going to play, but he didn't practice Wednesday. And the way Tua spoke on Wednesday was like, yeah, we'll get him back at some point. Which just doesn't sound good to me. I don't know how that sounded to you. If he's not the focal point of this game plan, which if he's healthy, number 1 with a bullet, that's a guy you got to stop. What's number 2 that then gets bumped up the list for the Patriots?
I mean, the obvious answer is probably Jalen Waddle, who's got 30 catches, averaging 12 yards per, a couple of touchdowns. I mean, he's got 23 less receptions than Tyreek Hill, and 5 less touchdowns than Tyreek Hill. So he's clearly, there's a big drop off. But that's kind of the next obvious, guy. A lot of people would say, he would be a number 1 on a lot of other teams, Jalen Waddle. So that was probably the guy. But I would say beyond that, and even if Jalen Waddle's hurt, oh my gosh, I mean, it just gets better and better news for the Patriots. But it's weird to say that a running back, and I think Raheem Mostert is maybe questionable to play, but Raheem Mostert, I would say he just kind of opens up a lot of things for the Miami offense. Those swing routes that they get to him, just his perimeter runs. If you can get the running game going with Raheem Mostert, it just opens up so many other play action little slant routes that Tua makes a living on. And so if you can kind of keep the running back contained, Raheem Mostert, on those perimeter runs where it really softens up a defense when they get going with those runs, then you got something. And so it sounds crazy to stop a running back. That's not that big of a deal. But when Miami is now shown the ability to be patient against a Patriots defense, show that they can, they can go on long drives, which they did in that first game, and have no problem with that. They don't have to strike fast like we all kind of think that they were kind of built for, before. They've shown that they know that, the best way to beat a Patriots defense is to be methodical and show patience. And that all starts with an advanced running game. And they do have an advanced running game. And it's very hard to kind of contain. And so if you can keep it contained, then you're going to do a lot better chances to stop the pass. So that, to me, if you can, the next guy besides Tyreek Hill is stop Miami's running game, and that starts with Raheem Mostert primarily on those perimeter runs.
I like that. Staying with Waddle for a second, it's really interesting talking to guys in the locker room nowadays, and especially when he first started to emerge, right? Like we all knew what Tyreek Hill was once he got to Miami, and then you look at Waddle and he's just as fast and just as quick. His usage, though, is so different from Hill. And the way it was explained to me is like all of their shot plays are for Tyreek, or their deep overs are for Tyreek. But for an offense that really emphasizes yards after catch, the go-to guy on those design plays on shallow crosses, maybe deeper crosses, return routes, is Waddle. So it's really interesting when you think about the game plan you alluded to. The Patriots open against Miami with this bizarro formation that was completely dictated by Tyreek Hill, because the week before he killed the Chargers with deep overs, okay, and shots down the sideline. So they put those three safeties in like a fence, between the numbers, all at the same level, 15 to 18 yards deep. And then the corners aligned where Miami also likes to eat, and you see this more with Waddle, little small hook routes, okay, or slants. And talking to guys this week, that's where they love to live now, is when you're playing too deep, we'll hit those areas between the numbers and the hashes. So it's all kind of like the short seams. And it's really interesting where if Hill's out, you don't need those three safeties back. You can then instead park maybe one deep safety and kind of cloud the middle to cut off those crossers and maybe play a little bit more man. And Waddle can still burn you. He can still go deep. But it's just the way they prefer to use him, because if Hill's out, you're probably playing Chase Claypool, who's a very vertical receiver. Cedric Wilson will play a little bit more. But it will fundamentally change kind of the geometry of how the Patriots want to play defense in relation to the space, because how Miami's going to try to dictate terms to you, either through Waddle, who we expect to be healthy, and Hill, who might not be.
I mean, it's amazing. I just think if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, how different this offense will be. It'll be more predictable. I think you don't have to put as much resources in the deep part of the field. You can really, those short seams that you're talking about, the Dolphins killed the Patriots on those little hook routes between the numbers and the hash marks in the first game, because they were so worried about the deep ball. They were almost conceding those little short hook routes. And okay, you're waiting for Tua to make a mistake. Well, he didn't in that first game. He's got a penchant to do that. But I just think that in this game, if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, holy smokes, you're gonna flood the zones. You are gonna, maybe I don't think you're gonna. The Patriots really love the blitz, and the blitz is getting home a little bit better recently. But for the majority of the season, they blitzed an awful lot without any real success. Like it just, and against the better teams, against Dallas, against the Eagles, against the Miami Dolphins, blitz, and don't get home. Teams are snuffing them out. And so I don't know if they have to do that against Tua. I think you can just, flood the zones, play with single high safety, like you said, take away the middle of the field, and I think you'll probably be all right. Don't blitz as much, because Tua had your blitzes figured out the whole time. They had adjustments for every blitz that you had, and I think I don't think that would be smart to do in this game.
Well, you mentioned Raheem Mostert, and let's wrap on him for a second, because they did hammer the edges. More than 45% of Miami's runs in that first meeting were behind or outside of either tackle. Okay, and it sounds like an easy 50-50 proposition, right? Like it's up the middle or it's over the edges. But in reality, you could go behind the right guard, the left guard, center, combination of both. I'm telling you, they made a concerted effort to attack the flats when they say, oh, you're going to put, 30% here defense just way off of the screen in the broadcast. Fine, we'll attack the short areas. So it was the short throws in the running game. The Patriots' run defense is 9th in DVOA. They're 23rd against the pass, which that discrepancy is a little bit bigger than I think it would be. But screw DVOA for a second. They're top 10 in basically every metric. And this is a defense that is getting the best of Christian Barmore. Devon Gaccio just played his best game. Yeah. And
Barmore's playing his best right now, Andrew.
Yes.
Barmore's playing the best he's played since he's been here, don't you think? I'm sorry, not to interrupt your.
No, totally. Go ahead.
But I just think Barmore's playing the best football he's played since he's been here, and it's about time. But sorry to interrupt, but he's a huge reason why running between the tackles has been very difficult.
Yeah, you interrupt whenever you want. I'm going to interrupt you. So this is a two-way street here. But the dismount is it's a banged up offensive line for Miami. It's a run defense that's been steady and I think underrated, at least if you listen to these kind of numbers. And so when the Patriots played a 5-1 front, I talk about you're used to the 7-man boxes. You see a little bit more 6-man boxes now. They put everyone out across the line, 5 defensive linemen, and Bentley was the lone linebacker. You do this against a lot of outside zone teams. Okay, plug every gap. You can't really double team and open up a cutback lane. Mixed results. On Sunday, considering everything we just talked about, do you trust this defense to play more 6-man boxes, or might that not be enough?
I'm worried that's not going to be enough.
Okay.
I'll just say this: the game's in Miami. I can look at my weather app. Let's see, what's the weather going to be down there? And I'm just telling you from experience.
I don't think we need this. I mean, I'll buy you time now to actually look it up. Here's my guess. Here's my very educated guess. It's going to be the mid 80s, high humidity, and probably a good chance of rain at some point.
Yep. That's probably let's see what the Sunday forecast is.
That's just South Florida.
It's 50% chance of rain, mid 80s. I don't know what the but the humidity will be at 60%. I don't know if that
actually sounds low. But
that sounds kind of low.
Good,
but the point is, the Dolphins you should always have a running game. Like, you play in South Florida, have a good running game, and it really can take it will wear a defense down with the running game. And you know what you got. You know what you do, and you do that by having perimeter runs. Get these defensive guys running sideline to sideline. Get these linebackers chasing sideline to sideline, wear their ass out with these perimeter runs. And then also, what you got to do is make the Patriots secondary come up and make tackles, right? So it's a lot of these dump offs to the flat, and then there's like 10 yards between the corner and the running back, and the corner's got to come up and make a solid tackle. The Patriots defense as a whole has not been a very good tackling team, particularly on the perimeter with the edge guys and with the corners and the safeties. And so that's how you're going to exploit this Patriots defense, is by forcing the guys on the edges, the cornerbacks, the DBs, the safeties, to come up and make tackles. And it gets hard in that heat, in these long sustained drives that Miami seems to be okay with. That's the Miami's best chance, is to get them worn down by having them run sideline to sideline and making the secondary, which isn't very good at tackling, I'll be honest, come up and make tackles on these running backs. That's the formula. That's what Miami, I think, is going to come out and try and do. They're not going to take deep shots down the field, particularly if Tyreek's is not playing this game. It's going to be a lot of get it out to the flats quick, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of kind of what's the those motions where they kind of
jet sweeps, pop passes, things like that.
Pop passes.
But you must have hated doing that, right? Like, this is speaking directly from experience. Ted Johnson, hated running sideline to sideline in the early 2000s, late 90s, because it's 90 degrees out. I'm in a dark uniform. This sucks. It's the one place where I would get 2 IVs for a game.
Man. It was in Miami, and so the heat, the humidity is a factor. And it's always more difficult for a team from the north going down to the south to play in those conditions, because you can't simulate it up there in Foxboro.
We're going to have one more question, then we'll go to the other side of the ball. But on that point, it's funny that I don't even think the Dolphins need to get to the secondary to force missed tackles, because Juwan Bentley missed 5 as a middle linebacker. And if the Patriots want to run the risk of that 5-1 front, I think they might go, okay, he's normally a short tackler, but that's your slowest player in the middle of the defense. Kyle Duggar also missed 2. But it's a really interesting point, because it's taken for granted how typically good at tackling they are. Last 4 weeks have been bad, just flatly bad. You missed 12 times against Buffalo. And again, Bentley was your biggest defender, and he's going to be in the middle of pretty much everything else you want to do. The last point I want to end on is this. When the Patriots have faced Tua, obviously they've never beaten him. He's never really beaten them over the head, though. Like, they've never scored more than 30 points offensively versus the Patriots. I think the average is around 23, even with Mike McDaniel here. What he does do, though, is death by paper cuts. His average snap to throw time in week 2 was 2.08 seconds, the 4th fastest in the last 3+ years, according to Next Gen Stats. So it vaporized the Patriots pass rush. Their pressure rate that night, 15.2%. And he does this time and time again. Screens, RPOs, whatever it might be. So if the Patriots take care of those areas we talked about between the numbers and the hashes, okay, and you do a decent enough job on Waddle, he can still get the ball out. So are you blitzing like you're saying? Because it got home against Buffalo, but you're right, the last 3-4 weeks generally has not been good. Or are you trying to make him hold on to the ball elsewhere? Because either you need to get to him in 2.2 seconds, which is hard, or you need to force him to hold the ball, which is even harder based on their recent history.
Yeah, I think with Tyreek Hill being out, I think you can probably, and I just said don't blitz, but that was don't blitz when you have Tyreek Hill, right? I think if Tyreek Hill's not playing, then I think you can be more aggressive. I really do. I think you can get up there, and I think you can if you have your left tackle and left guard, starting with left tackle, left guard out, you can exploit that. I think you can exploit that with a blitz. I think you can come up and be more aggressive and be with your blitzes, because I just, if Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill if aren't playing, or if they're not playing at 100%, getting burned deep doesn't concern me as much. And so I just think it's a totally different mindset going into
this. Like everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Like you're landing the first punch here, is what you're suggesting to the Patriots on Sunday. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they should sit back and take the conservative approach like they did for most of the game in that first. I mean, they started trying to blitz and they got burned. You know what? Look, I would be more comfortable blitzing if Tyreek Hill isn't playing. So go ahead and do that, and be more aggressive in your. They were soft in their alignments. I mean, they were giving them these underneath stuff. You don't need to do that. They don't have a deep threat if Tyreek's not playing. So go up there and get more aggressive. Make Tua hold the ball longer and take away that first read, and then you got something, man. Tua is. I think he's pretty bad at running with the ball. I don't think he's a very good, thrower of the ball when he leaves the pocket. I think he's better just straight in the pocket than he is when he has to leave and vacate the pocket. I'm with you. But of course, easier said than done. The guy's still 5-0, 6-0, whatever it is against the Patriots. All right, let's go to when the Patriots have the ball. Here are their rankings. They're actually 20th by DVOA, which is obviously a huge bump from Buffalo. But people listening to this podcast knew they made strides in Vegas. Obviously, like decent first couple of weeks, not great. They are 22nd in passing, 16th at rushing. Miami defensively, pretty bad across the board, despite all that talent. 24th by DVOA, 24th against the pass, and 25th against the run. They may or may not get Jalen Ramsey back. We don't know. I've asked some coaches. They're like, yeah, he's a made man, but we don't know. I'm not going to spend that much time on him. What I want to spend time on is how much of what you saw last Sunday against the Bills for the Patriots offense is sustainable. Like, what can they copy and then paste this weekend in Miami schematically or personnel wise? Because it's not all going to be replicable, but I think there are elements there you can repeat. Absolutely. And I would say, I think you can duplicate what Pop Douglas did. I think you can get Pop Douglas open in space. Yes. This. Keep going. Yeah. I just think that's the obvious one. I think Pop Douglas has the ability to find crease, find space and find holes in the defense. And I think you can game plan plays for him all day long. And I would feel very, very comfortable with that. I think Kendrick Bourne, both of these guys, what was his average yards per pass was like Mac Jones was like 9.1 yards. But he was just throwing the ball. It was all horizontal, right? And then the guys were running with it afterwards. So run after the catch. Yeah. Run after the catch. So who's your best two guys run after the catch? Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, the top two receivers from last week. I think you can duplicate that for the most part every single week. Now, that teams are going to start game planning for that. That's the difference. So you can say, is it sustainable? That remains to be seen. But I think that's your best chance of kind of leaning on something week in, week out is Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne. Those two guys are very good runners after the catch. And Mac needs to just, get the ball out quick to those guys. I think that's sustainable for the rest of the year. I think the running game, I think they have the ability to be kind of what they were last week, which is, average 4 yards per rush. I thought the offensive line was the best they'd played all season long. Obviously, with Mike Onwenu playing right tackle, I think that made the difference. When you have your left tackle, Trent Brown, you have Cole Strange at left guard, David Andrews at center, and then XYZ player at right guard. Last week it was City So. He seemed to do a decent job next to Mike Onwenu. That's a good offensive line. That was the offensive line that we all said going into the season, hey, we know there's going to be one position. We thought it might be right tackle was going to be the one that you could have to manage around. But clearly the right tackle position has been such a disastrous, kind of position
they couldn't get away with keeping the same guys out there, so they put Mike out there, and that seemed to, at least for a week, and I think that will continue. You're talking about things that you can, I think, lean on going forward. I think I can trust Mike Onwenu at right tackle being just fine and being more than serviceable out there, and that makes the entire unit just better with that stability at right tackle. So you can manage the right guard situation, which is right now it's City So. And so I think that's something you can lean on too, is just having a better running game moving forward. A lot of people were questioning whether their offensive line can get better. It'll get better once you get the same 5 guys playing, together long enough to build that continuity. And I'll admit, even Cole Strange at left guard, you go, that's a question mark. I thought he did a pretty good job last week. He's your first rounder. That's your guy at left guard. And the offensive line played it's not surprising they played their best ball because they had their best players, at least 4 best players out there, and managed around that right guard position.
It's amazing how much you get done when you just play your 5 best linemen and let a guy like City Sal, who was a career college guard, except for 2017 when he played a little tackle at Eastern Michigan, just go back to playing guard. And he's not only, a guy who played that position, he was your highest drafted rookie offensive lineman. So Tony Amafi comes in now, 5th round kid. Jake Andrews can't even see the field. I mean, he's a center, so he's got a big obstacle in David Andrews. But you get Cole Strange back, that's partly health. Mike Onwenu moves to right tackle, partly health. Apparently, according to Adrian Clem, they are batting this idea around this summer. That idea should have taken hold much sooner. And I was never high on Riley Reif. Calvin Anderson now is a professional healthy scratch. I think you roll with that same combination moving forward as long as you can. To answer my own question about the sustainability, it's a great point about the offensive line, because then that goes to the running game, which has been average. It's steady Eddie, but you can get away with that as long as you move the change. And that's what this is. Success rate, they've been top 10 the last 3 weeks. That's a big, okay, you need 4 or 5 in first down, boom. Third one you convert, boom. They're doing that better than most teams. I'll say one other thing, because I have a bunch of stats, but I wrote about them today about Pop Douglas, said them last episode. The coaches have said, as far as motion goes, which you saw, like I did, the Patriots used almost double the amount of motion they typically do at the snap. It was huge. And they go, well, it's a week-to-week thing. It's a game plan call. Not every defense reacts the same. Okay, that's true. Different defenses have different rules. But Miami, like Buffalo, stinks against motion at the snap. They're allowing the second highest passer rating to opponents who just put a guy in motion at the snap. So not only play Pop Douglas, but run that dude ragged as long as you can in the heat, because the results are going to be good. And then throw at tight ends and running backs, because they're bottom 5 against both of those guys. And that's
that's a good thing. You know why that's a good. You know why that motion. What does that motion do? It makes the defense have to think. And if you look, when you got defensive players thinking, oh man, that's not good, right?
Present company excluded.
Right. But you get my drift. I mean, for the most part, you don't. If they gotta all of a sudden, it's so much easier if you just line up without motion. I got this guy, I got that. All right. But once they start doing motion to stack and they motion across the formation, it's communication, and it's who's you got to adjust, and you can keep defenses off balance. And you saw Buffalo's that defense, they were kind of confused. You have an over aggressive defense, okay, like maybe the Buffalo Bills, where their eyes are like they're looking over here, but the play's really going over there because the Patriots dangle something over here to get you distracted from where the play's really going. And we're going to put a ton of motion, and we're going to formation you to death, and we're going to personnel you to death. So different defensive packages have to communicate, on the different snaps. And so it can create a lot of confusion by having an advanced motion and shifting kind of package on an offense. And that's sustainable. I think you can do that every single week, right? You just build on that from the previous week. And so, it is kind of amazing, Andrew, to see Pop Douglas going out there and doing more advanced stuff than a Devontae Parker, than a Juju Smith-Schuster. They're 2 top, theoretically, wide receivers on this roster. You haven't seen those 2 guys be able to execute anything close to what Pop and what Kendrick Bourne were able to do last week. So it's just another one of those head scratchers when it comes to the roster construction.
So I just wrap up motion here for a second because it's an easy catch-all, right, from the media, like, oh, hey, do more of this. I know more than you. And Bill O'Brien could tell you the rules of a Fangio defense in the face of jet motion. The linebackers are going to make this check, and that's not good against particular concepts that we want to run. But here's the thing about motion. The top 2 offenses in the league in terms of points scored are Miami and San Francisco. Okay, they are first and third in motion used. And that's because they come from the same tree. Shanahan's love using motion at the snap. And you have good offenses. They're at the bottom of the league that don't do it at all. Philly and Dallas. They play matchup ball, or in Philly's case, a lot more option run game where our dudes are better and we're going to try and get some numbers advantages. The Patriots don't have any of those advantages when it comes to roster. You can't play matchup ball. So I just think you need to use every tool in your box, everything in the shed, and throw it at the opposing defense. And part of this is very simple. Like, you don't have to run new concepts. Bill O'Brien's wrapping the same gifts, okay, giving it Christmas one year, and then here comes Valentine's Day, and you're getting the same thing. But it's in heart-shaped wrapping paper, and so but you open it up, and it's still slant flat, okay? Or it's a swing screen to Ramondre Stevenson, like they hit when Demario Douglas came in motion. First play of that last drive, and he gets a block, you get open in space. All these different things can stay simple. I think you just need to amplify the talent you have. Because Demario Douglas is good. Ramondre Stevenson is good. But they're not great. Like, you can ask A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard for those offenses that don't use motion just to go win one-on-one. So that's my last thing. Quickly, the Dolphins, as I mentioned, bottom 10 against the pass, a lot of talent. The one thing they do very well, though, is defend the middle of the field. And we know that is where Mac wants to live Monday through Friday, vacation on the weekends, take trips with his girlfriend and family. He might not be able to do that here in Miami. How else do they win in the passing game when he can't really go between the hashes? Yeah,
that's a good point. I would say you got to loosen them up. You know, it's kind of like a boxer. You know, you kind of, you know, you work the jabs, you know, to kind of set yourself up for the knockout blow. Like, you got to. I think if you want to get the middle of the field, you got to work the perimeter. You got to work the perimeter, and then you counter with the inside stuff, right? I mean, so a lot of perimeter runs, a lot of those, what do you call them, arc releases, you know, and just get guys flying to the flat, and then you hit them in the middle, right? You don't just you got to set them up, and so you set them up, you know, rope-a-dope style by running to the perimeter. And passing to the perimeter, and then hopefully that will loosen up maybe some stuff over the middle. You know, and they were able to attack the middle a little bit more last week with Pop and with Kendrick. I mean, Kendrick born on a crosser was big. You know, just the skinny post with Demario Douglas in the slot, option routes with Demario Douglas in the slot. I think you have better guys that can work and get open in the middle of the field with those two guys. And so they're getting more of the playing time now, it looks like, than the previous guys that I mentioned. And so I think you can attack more of the middle of the field because of the players that you have. And, you know, in the touchdown to win the game to Mike Gesicki, I don't know why. I'm a bigger believer in Mike Gesicki than maybe most. And I think that's a guy that you could work the middle of the field more than what you've been. I think he's just a better option over the middle of the field than a Hunter Henry is. I do. I think he's got more wiggle. I think he's got more shake. I think he's got more ability to get open. You saw that in that touchdown when he beat his defender in the middle, who had initially outside leverage and then was hoping that he had help inside, and the help didn't get there because it was a really good route that Mike ran. So I think you can get more options in the middle than they've had because of the personnel that you have playing now more than the guys you had in there originally. So as much as the middle of the field's been a problem up to this point, I think partly it was because of the guys you were throwing out there. Now that those guys have had diminished roles, I think the guys that you have now are going to be better suited for middle of the field work.
I like it. Speaking to the edges, I mean, again, this is set up by a good running game. I mean, they're still passing about 60-70% of the time on first down runs, but you can go off right tackle or jet sweep in that area because, you know, the Dolphins are allowing 4.4 yards per carry, which doesn't sound like a lot behind right tackle. That's bottom 10 in the league right now. And they're allowing a ton of first downs off that side. Or if you want to go to the left, there's 6'8", 380-pound Trent Brown playing some of the best football of his career. So whether they are screens, okay, or you're just handing the ball off, getting it out of the flats, then coming into the middle, just to get those linebackers, like you said, moving side to side, I think is a great point. All right. Anything we missed? Any sneaky X factor here offensively for the Patriots?
For the offense,
Yeah,
probably not.
Okay.
Other than look, the offense needs to stay on schedule, and can the offense get this team a lead? Those are two things. You saw what a lead did for this team last week. They're front runners. The Patriots are, and they have to be, considering the restrictions they have on the roster. They need to get out. They're a better team if they have a lead, so that's clearly what they need to do. But the offense, for it to work, they have to stay on schedule, and that's the bottom line. And that's it for the Patriots offense. I'll say for the Patriots defense, it's to me a key matchup. Andrew is, and I like yours that you wrote. Christian Barmore against the left guard for.
Oh, spoiler! Here we go. Yeah, we're getting there in a sec. But yeah, keep going.
I mean, Barmore, that poor left guard for the Bills. It was a rookie. I don't remember his name. Ooh, that boy had a tough day. So why not more of the same? I love that matchup inside with Christian Barmore over their left guard. But I like the matchup between Steven Belichick and Mike McDaniel. I thought Mike McDaniel had an answer for everything Belichick threw his way, that being Steven or Bill, whoever's the main, thinker on that side of the ball. But that is the best matchup because I thought the Patriots, what they did on defense in that first game, Miami had an answer for everything. I mean, you want to come out and play three safeties, and I think they thought, the Patriots did, like, oh, watch, we're going to show everybody around the NFL how you stop a Miami offense. And, yeah, Miami didn't have big plays that game, but they controlled the game with Miami's offense, controlled the game the whole time. I mean, the time of possession, the long drives, taking whatever the defense gave them. And so, at the end of the day, that wasn't the best game plan. And so to me, I'm curious, the game plan, it's really a lot of times it comes down to coordinators, Andrew. Their coordinator versus our coordinator, how they're calling the games. And I'm curious how Steven Belichick will call this game. Will he be more aggressive? Will he have more press coverage? Will he not blitz as much? Will he blitz just as much as he did now that Tyreek Hill maybe he's not going to play? So to me, that's the most interesting matchup is Mike McDaniel versus Steven Belichick.
Cool. I'll give you one X factor, and it's actually on defense for the Dolphins. Jalen Phillips had a strip sack that led to a scoop and score in Philadelphia. And I just
he didn't play the first game either, did he?
He didn't play the first game. So Mike Onwenu, and I cautioned against this in the last episode. And Phillips has got a lot of tools as a pass rusher. He's a first-round pick. But speed is going to be an issue for Mike Onwenu. The foot speed there is a guy who's 330, 340, built like a guard, played guard mostly for his career, NFL and college. Could be an issue. If the Patriots have issues in pass protection, it could be Phillips, a guy they haven't seen a whole lot, has leveled up since, and it will be the first time they see him this season. All right.
Remember, don't forget, it was Van Ginkel that had the game against us last time.
Woo.
So, I mean, if look, he's Van Ginkel's on one side and Phillips on the other side. I mean, that potentially could be, trouble for the Patriots.
Yeah, look like Van Helsing out there. All right, 3 keys, 2 matchups, 1 wild card thought, non-football related, something we haven't seen. Is Steve Belichick versus Mike McDaniel one of your keys? Like that was a good deep dive there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went ahead of you a little bit there, but I mean the keys to and I'm going to give you 3 quick ones. Take away to his first read. That's I think that's the best way to. If he does that, play action RPO, boom, hits the slant, and just keeps feeding that slant, that skinny post, then I think it's going to be a long day. So take away that first read. Offense needs to stay on schedule, get a lead early, and then the matchup I just said, Steven Belichick versus Mike McDaniels. Those are some of the things I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like once you get to this point in the season, and especially one the Patriots had, where you can see flashes of solutions, more Pop Douglas, more motion, like we've covered that, you get repetitive. And then there's repetitive and boring, which is where I'm going to go, which is set a strong edge defensively, because you've got advantages in the interior, I think, with Godchow and Barmore and Bentley when he's allowed to, stay kind of between the hashes and not go sideline to sideline. So Jelani Tavai needs to win in the edge. Anthony Jennings has done a good job. Dietrich Wise. But it's really just those three guys, and you won't see Josh Uche play in early downs because he lost contain against Tua and a run before Tavai lost contain on an 8-yard touchdown in that first meeting in the second quarter. And that wasn't the difference in the game because Mostert burst up the middle. But I just think the latter touchdown, that just happens sometimes. Like, you're going to give up big runs up the middle. It's a long season. They're a good team. He's a fast player. You can't lose the edge. At least set that and give yourself a chance to win and get help to come over. 2 matchups. You gave away my Christian Barmore versus Lester Cotton. Good luck, Lester Cotton. Barmore, 1 sack, 3 hurries, and he'll be on the field a lot because he's now finally playing the run well in addition to the pass. Any matchups offensively kind of pique your interest? I just mentioned Jalen Phillips. You covered him versus Mike Onwenu.
Offensively, oh, man.
I'll give you one. How about this? You mentioned Mike Gesicki. It's revenge game, but it's also, I said, bottom 5 team in the league, according to DVOA, at defending tight ends. Why can't he eat? Javon Holland's a great safety, okay? Yeah. But if they're going to play in a too high structure, that's middle of the field open. That seems. Yep. Hunter Henry had a touchdown against Miami last time out. He's a tight end.
Yep. That's a good one. And I'm wondering, I've heard reports that Holland might not even play because of an injury. So that's you talk about kind of maybe getting Miami at a good time. I heard the report that Holland, their safety might not play either. That I would love for Mike Gesicki to get going. I don't know. I will always defend him. There's a lot of people that tell me I'm crazy, but I just think he can get more work done over the middle than he's been given. And so I like that as a matchup, Andrew, right there. Those guys over the middle for sure.
Cool. All right, one wild card. What do you got?
Wild card. What? I thought my wild card was Belichick versus McDaniel. So
cool. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that. All right,
that was my wild card.
Well, I'm going to drop mine in your lap because I want to end on story time. And then we'll make our game picks, but this is more important than any picks. No one remembers the predictions unless you pick against the Patriots. They win, throw it in your face. I'm going to pick against the Patriots. What I want, though, first is a story either of a trip to Miami, not on the field, something off the field. Because in the NBA, I think they call this like the South Beach flu. Feel like everyone goes out Miami the night before. You're in a place like there's a lot more going on than in Foxboro. Or because you were at his induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame last weekend, a great Mike Vrabel story that maybe you couldn't tell at his induction ceremony, because it's, taped, unlike this podcast, which won't go all over the internet as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? Either a great PG-13 Mike Vrabel story or a Miami got the best of this teammate or us back in the day.
Back in the day. Well, Miami was never going to get us because they would do, when we go down to play Miami, we go there later in the day, so that you don't have time between the time we land and the time our night meetings are, right? And so if you land at, say 4:00 and we don't have night meetings until 8, that 4-hour window is too long, right? And so typically we get to Miami 6:30, and you have an hour and a half, 2 hours before night meeting. And then after night meeting, which lasts about, 45 minutes to an hour, you have a couple hours before, curfew. So they build it so that you can't really get in trouble. I'll just be honest with you. But I did run into one time. The guy, have you ever seen the movie Friday? Remember the movie Friday?
Yeah.
Is it Debo, the crazy, big, jacked up dude that kind of rode around on his little small bike? Debo? Yep. I forget the actor's name, but I saw him out one time, and he looks as crazy in real life as he does in the movies, and I can't remember his name. That's that. Mike Vrabel, the story I didn't really get a chance to say in that induction ceremony was Mike Vrabel is one of the unbelievably most talented verbal jousters that you've ever encountered. If you want to get in a verbal jousting match with Mike, good luck. And I just share a story where him and Larry Izzo would always get into it. And Larry Izzo he's very much paranoid, like the TV character Larry David in the movie in the TV show Curb Your Enthusiasm. And so Mike would just keep sticking it to Larry because Larry didn't like being punked, the idea of being punked or called out or made to look stupid, if you know what I mean. He was very paranoid about that, and Mike would sense that, and Larry, and then just go in. But Mike constantly would go after Izzo. And one of my favorite debates, of course, was always Mike being from Ohio, Larry being from Texas. What's the better football state, right? And it was always, and you'd have to hear who played in Texas versus who played in Ohio, and it was just this constant, long, drawn-out debate. Until which usually Mike's final salvo was always this when it came to that debate. Larry, where's the Pro Football Hall of Fame at? Ohio. Boom. And he'd walk off. And that was his final salvo to Larry. But Mike Vrabel, the most talented, verbally skilled defender of his self than anybody I've ever met. And more times than not, I always saw Larry was the kind of the receiver of that abuse. But God bless you, Larry. You probably asked for it more than that. But one of the most unique players and outstanding football players I've ever played with was Mike Vrabel, and I was honored to play with him.
I love it. Yeah, he's even getting on Brady during I think a hit on the Sports Hub. Talk about he's got some cosmetic appointments, so no one is safe from Brady. I know Bill wasn't back in the day. Stories written by Michael Holley, our mutual friend, in his book Patriot Reign. Subsequent books of just interrupting Bill in team meetings when Bill's going on and on and on and talk about the media's tell you you're so great, they're going to give you blowjobs and this and that, and then he raises his hand and goes, Coach, what was that about blowjobs? Like just it seemed to cut the tension in a room in a way that you guys could and just never he would. I will say this. I thought about bringing this story up, but my kids shot me down. They were worried how it'd be received, but that's what we're here for. Go fire away.
Belichick would wear, I don't know what they're called, like these striped sweaters, these popular striped sweaters in the early 2000s. They're not Argyle. I don't know what but they're hideous, man. But they were all the rage. And Bill wore really tight ones. I mean, it was like, bro, you need to get a little bit of a looser sweater. And Mike would always like to comment from the back row. Mike sat in the very last row of this auditorium, and he just screamed down something about Bill's tight sweater, and we all got a laugh out of it. But you got to be a hell of a player to get away with that kind of stuff. But Mike always, seemed to have a comment at the right time. Timing's everything in comedy, and his comedic timing is unmatched. But he liked to bust on Bill's wardrobe, and those tight sweaters that he would wear usually got a big laugh out of all of us.
Oh, I love it. The good old days never fail.
Days, brother.
They only get sweeter with each passing day here in this era. Anything else we didn't cover? You want to this? I don't know. Like I said at the start, like I'm coming back to. They might have a legitimate path here.
They do. If they beat Miami, they do, Andrew. I mean, I don't know. Then, it's like, then you think, okay, the division is maybe, not so far out of reach. You'd be 3-1 in the division and beat the top two teams, Buffalo and Miami, back to back. Can you imagine they go down there and beat Miami? What that does psychologically for you, for a team that has just been bludgeoned to the pulp up to this point, considering what you have after that with the Commanders and the Colts, it could, oh my gosh, it could really be a springboard to something. If you beat Miami and with all their injuries on the road, which is a tough place to play, like I've mentioned, then you all of a sudden things are looking up, buddy. I know it sounds crazy, but at 3-5, then you got a little something, some momentum going, and who knows what can happen then.
Do they do it? What do you got? Game pick.
I think it's going to be tough. I think playing in Miami is too hard. I do. And I think Miami, look, I'm always a little bit scared to pick a Patriots team that's coming off its best performance, being able to duplicate that against a team that is reeling from a bad beatdown from the Philadelphia Eagles in their hometown, in their backyard. in a very difficult place to play because of the heat and humidity. I just think they're going to be locked in and more in focus, even though that they have a lot of key guys injured. I just think it's a spot that I think is very difficult for the Patriots to win this game. And so I think they'll keep it close. It's not going to be a blowout. No way, no how. Like most of these games against Miami, it'll be a close game, but I think Miami wins the game, Andrew.
I'm with you. I think the Patriots successfully dragged this into the mud. Again, Belichick has been ahead of the curve when it comes to defending, the most elite offenses in recent league history, maybe most of the league history, right? Like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes struggle against the Patriots more than any team really that they face. Mike McDaniel is not running up the scoreboard on the New England Patriots, never topped 24 points against them. And so I just look and go, they get to 20 again, and that's enough. Like I can't trust a 2-5 football team. Like 2 wins like this might erase the taste you got from New Orleans and Dallas, and you got positive momentum moving forward. You're still 3-5, and I just think this lands somewhere like 20-16, and the Patriots might even have a lead. But I'd say this almost every week: the talent is a talent, and I think that wins out. And it's a pretty well coached football team on both sides. But at this point, we'll take entertaining, Ted.
Entertain us. That was an entertaining game last week. We'll take those all day. Give us something to talk about and make it a compelling season. Talking about the draft in October and about Bill's future in October isn't fun. It's more fun to talk about these games. So just give us something to talk about, and we'll be happy.
My man, you heard it from him. Little beefy, walking around somewhere in the apartment.
There he is. With his mohawk. I wish I could go get him and bring him and show him to you. But yeah, he's got this really great mohawk. I'll bring him up next time we do a pod together.
I'm jealous. My mohawk days are long gone. Ted Johnson, thank you for coming back. Thank you for always making some time, and obviously we'll have you return next great offense they see. We'll break it down, scheme it up, and see what comes out on the other end, all right?
You got it, buddy. Thanks, Andrew.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.